Hey, Charge of History. Today's essential question is, what did the Athenians invent? Athens was a Greek city-state, and today it's the capital of Greece. The city of Athens was named after the goddess Athena. And see this temple here? It's a temple for Athena at the highest point of the city. On Friday, we talked about the Greeks' polytheistic religion. Do you remember where the Greeks' many gods lived? And all of these describe the purpose of Greek religious mythology, except what? So I know the Greeks are polytheistic because they have many gods, but what about Buddhists? And who's the leader of Buddhism today? So let's get back to Greece. We're going to talk about all the different things that the city-state of Athens contributed to the world, especially the things we still use today. As we read, make sure to annotate. Please circle key words, especially words we've learned in class. Underline key details and summarize each paragraph or each section. Let's start with architecture. Architecture means the way that people build and design their buildings. Greeks are famous for their pillars, which are also called columns. The Greeks developed three main types of columns. The Doric style is the most plain. The Ionic style is known for its scrolls up here at the top. The Corinthian style is known for being the most ornate, which means fancy. The Parthenon is an example of a building that uses these types of columns, and you can also see columns all over New Orleans and lots of places in the world today. The Parthenon was built on top of the Acropolis in Athens. An acropolis means the highest ground in a city, so the Parthenon is built upon the tallest point in Athens. The Parthenon was a temple to the goddess Athena. Oh, so here's a picture that I took on my trip to Greece. And this is me standing on top of the Acropolis and looking over the rest of the city. So as you can see, it's higher than any other place in Athens. But so the Parthenon was a temple to the goddess Athena, who's pictured here. And it was also used as a center for government. It was a very important place in ancient Athens. Let's move on to philosophy. Like other ancient Greeks, Athenians loved to talk and argue. Men gathered at the agora, which was a central marketplace, to discuss the world around them. They talked about the meaning of life, about truth, justice, beauty. They called this type of thinking philosophy, which means the love of wisdom. One of the greatest philosophers in Athens was a man named Socrates. He was always encouraging people to question the things that they thought they knew. He taught others by asking them questions that forced them to think hard about their own beliefs. He asked questions like, what's the good life for a man? What is truth? How do you know? He was the kind of teacher who wouldn't just give you the answers, but he taught you to think critically. Socrates said that he was the wisest man in Greece because he understood that he knew very little about a great big world. Socrates was also the teacher of other famous philosophers, Plato and Aristotle. As you annotated, make sure that you circled the word philosophy and underlined what it means up in the first paragraph under the philosophy section. Let's move on to science. Greek people were very interested in science as a way of organizing the world and having power over some very powerful things like oceans and weather. From about 600 BC, a lot of Greek men spent time on astronomy. Circle that. Astronomy means observing the planets and the sun and trying to figure out how they work. Greek scientists were the ones who figured out that the Earth went around the sun and that the moon went around the Earth. They calculated the size of the Earth. And so they were the ones who made some major first contributions to the word astronomy, which means studying the stars. Hippocrates and other Greek doctors wrote important medical texts that were used for hundreds of years. This is called the Hippocratic Oath. This is a promise that doctors still make today. They still use this, where they promise to give their best for their patients. Disease was a really serious problem in ancient Greece, and Hippocrates helped to figure out what caused diseases and how to prevent them. Let's move on to art in ancient Athens. The ancient Greeks loved beauty, music, literature, drama, philosophy, politics, and art. There was an ongoing competition between city-states as to which city-state had the best statues and the most beautiful temples. The ancient Greeks made statues of perfect people. If they sculpted a person, they made him or her look absolutely beautiful. On the other hand, some Roman statues had big noses and wrinkles. The Greeks would never do that. Most Greek cities had a theater, and Athens has some beautiful theaters that you can still see today. It was in the open air, and it was usually a bowl-shaped arena on a hillside. Some theaters were very big, with room for more than 15,000 people in the audience. Here's a picture that I took when I was in Athens of a theater that is still standing today. Of course, it's falling apart, but you can still see them. All the actors were men or boys. No women were allowed. Dancers and singers, called the chorus, performed in a flat area called the orchestra. So here's where the dancers and singers were. Over time, solo actors also took part, and a raised stage became part of the theater, like we have today. The actors changed costumes in a hut called the skene. Painting the walls of the hut made the first scenery. The plays were either comedies, which were funny and often poked fun at the rulers, or they were tragedies. They were sad and serious with a lesson about right and wrong, and a lot of people that died. So now you know what the Athenians invented. You're going to do some research on your own to find out more details about these things. Go ahead, back to your playlist, and begin your research independently.